Hey, welcome to another episode of 15 Good Minutes, where we have conversations for 15 minutes talking about different topics. Today I have a man, Vern, here.
Hello.
Hey, we're going to talk about how you were raised affect your parenting today.
Right, yeah, I'm going to get into a story later on about how my pops managed to get me to snitch on myself on a complete bluff.
Wow.
It was garbage.
It was good.
It was whack. Yeah, but it was good. It was a good move. It was a good move. But
you call it whack.
I mean, now I understand. Now that I have a child of my own. But yeah, so for you specifically, I guess before we get to me, we'll start with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I was raised fast, right?
Okay.
And I say fast is because a lot of things were exposed to me at an earlier age that I don't necessarily believe that should have been exposed to me, right?
Okay.
So, example would be, going to pay bills, right? So,
right.
Man, I'm a 12-year-old kid,
right,
going to pay light bills and different things like that. Now, there's two things that I learned from that, right?
Okay.
So one thing is it taught me responsibility at an early age.
Right.
Second thing was that was just way too much for me as a young kid
at that young age
to be dealing with.
So at what was the event? What was the single moment where you realized, damn, I'm not like other teenagers. This is not something children are supposed to be doing. Was there a particular time or event when that happened?
Absolutely. So when I'm in the place paying the light bill, and I'm the only kid in there paying the light bill, and I'm looking around and seeing all these grown adults, older, elderly people.
A house full of adults.
Yeah, and I'm in there paying the light bill. I'm the only kid in there paying the light bill. I'm like, man, this is not normal, right?
Right.
So for me, that it taught me responsibility at an early age.
Right.
And so in turn, I want my kids to learn responsibility, but not be exposed to that much, right?
Right.
So for me, it's like I want them to be responsible for the things that they have and the things that they own, right?
Right.
But also, that's too much responsibility at an early age, right?
Okay.
So,
give me an example of what you think is too much, and then something that you would want them to be responsible for, and what you think is too much.
Okay, so for my kids, I want them to be responsible for the thing, dealing with, their chores when they come home, right? Making sure they get that, right?
Homework.
So I can tell you this. This is what I tell my kids,
okay,
right? So I tell my kids, I say, you only have as a child, right? You think you have a lifespan. Let's look at this, my hands as a lifespan, right? And in this lifespan, right, you have this much to live as a child growing up. Right. The rest of that is you as an adult. Right. And if you ask anybody, I don't care who you ask, and you say, give me a memory, way back in the days of growing up or whatever, they always go back to this part of their life when they were a child. Right. Yeah. And so I always tell my daughters and my sons, I'm like, look, you want to make sure that you have as much fun as you possibly can during this time. Be goofy. Don't try to grow up fast. You know what I mean? My daughter, don't want makeup so quick. You know what I mean? Don't try to do anything that you can do as an adult. Don't try to do it during this time period, right? Because we all want to do that, right? So you say, my niece, how old are you? 16. Oh, I'm almost 17. Right. So, why are you almost 17? You know what I mean?
So anxious to get there.
So anxious to get there. And when you get there, you're going to live all this life as an adult. So I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, look, you have this amount of time to be a kid, enjoy yourself, have fun, be goofy. You know what I mean?
Right. So, I mean, it's like, you're trying to give your kids the benefit of the doubt, or the benefit of your hindsight.
Absolutely.
Which every parent does, for everything. And I think what you said about being an adult more than a kid is brilliant, because I had the same observation when I have a young daughter. My kids aren't quite as old as yours yet, but I thought a lot, even well before I had my daughter, I used to ask my friends who had kids all sorts of questions. I would quiz them because I was very curious about parenthood, what it meant to be a parent. And as I've grown up, of course your lens changes, and now you see your nieces, nephews, your cousins or whatever have, and you're like, man, that's very, it's immature. Was I like that? Right. So anyway, so when you say, or when my daughter was born, one thing people say all the time is, it's like, oh, you have a baby, and I'm like, and I always think to myself, I'm like, well, I have a small human,
right?
And when I think about, you have kids, it's like, well, you have adults in training, because I've actually told other people, and we didn't discuss this before the show, but I've actually told other people the exact same thing he has, where when they say, oh, babies in-house babies, I was like, well, they're going to be kids for this long. Right. What I do matters then for the majority of their life when they spend it as adults. So you're basically just raising other humans. You're training other humans.
Absolutely.
And so to the point of the show about how you were raised affecting how you're gonna raise your own children. In particular, I mean, it's a broad topic, right? In particular, there's a bunch of things I could discuss about things my parents did and everything, but one that comes into mind in particular is I guess just having discipline. So like both of my parents like followed through on it. If there was a punishment coming,
right,
if there was a direction given, or if there was an ultimatum made,
yes,
they were going to follow through.
That's right.
They were
That's
follow through so much so that I think the most critical memory I had, I was sort of a below average student in high school, kind of just messing around, skipping classes, fucking around. And I think one day Dad had enough, and he told me, he said, "Look, man, if you don't come in here the next quarter with a 3.75 or better, I don't remember what it was. I think it was a 3.75 or better. I'm going to send you away to this military school with these skinheads, and you'll never be heard from again."
Wow.
That's pretty much. So now
your reaction to that, right?
No,
that's crazy.
You know what though? But by this time, I had been. I mean, listen. In his defense, I'm a habitual line stepper. So some kids, you're gonna raise them, and it's gonna be really.
And that line, you gonna go over that line.
Right. I'm gonna come up to it.
Yeah, right. You come up to it.
I wasn't
put
a
a toe over a little bit.
I'm not gonna. Kind of like, if he says something, I'm gonna talk back to him. I was too scared,
Right.
But I was, mischievous or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did require a firm hand. So through years of learning myself, when he made that statement, I don't think there was ever a moment when I didn't take him seriously. And I was like, oh shit. And so the next quarter I came in there with like a 3.85 or something. Just like that. And I think that was critical though, because it showed me, it's sort of, your parents try to drill all these lessons into you, but until you experience it yourself. So one of the things was like, man, being told for a long time that, Vern, you put a lot of time in all these other things. The classic thing, right? If you put as much time into X as you did Z, your studies as you did whatever, you'd be great. You're underperforming. And then simply just being threatened.
Right.
With military school.
Absolutely.
In a foreign land.
Right.
Of Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah, that right there, baby.
Foreign land of Indiana.
A foreign land of Indiana.
Yeah, right. For a kid, absolutely.
Never been out of the state.
Right. He gonna send you to Indiana.
Gonna send me to a military school
with skinheads.
With a bunch of dudes.
Right.
American History X. We seen it.
Right.
Anyway, so I won't get into detail. I never went there. I'm not going to criticize the school. I know the school's name. The point is, when he said that, I immediately took him seriously. And then so all the behavior I had been exhibiting up to that point was done away once I knew there was a consequence. And now I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about them. And then the crazy thing is, later on in life, he revealed that he did not want to pay any money to send me. He didn't want to do it.
Right.
I never got any of that. I'll give him credit. His they weren't bluffs, but his plays. If you're playing poker, for those of you familiar with poker, when he laid it down, when he put the money in the middle of the table, I mean, it made you think. You're like, damn, is he for real?
Right, because he followed through.
I was not one to test him. So bringing that back to my daughter, I'm finding now that as she's starting to come, she's getting to 2, and I have to be careful not to do this too early. But as she's approaching 2, when I tell her not to do something and she wants to do it anyway. She's an infant, but there's gonna come a time when I'm gonna be like, okay, this is the game stop. When your mother says something, when I say something, you heed it, else you get the punishment or whatever that is. Because like you said, I understand now that I'm an adult, I guess what kids do and don't know what they think they know. When I tell you not to run into traffic, it's not a game, because when you go out there one time, you get by a car, save your life, that type of thing. So I sound like an old man parent, but I mean, it comes full circle. Everything comes full circle. So,
it absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. One of the things I do know is, especially growing up, that I know how I could always, tell my parents one thing,
right, do
something else, right? You know what I mean? I always know that. So for my kids, I approach them like this, like, I believe 75% of what you're telling me.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Right? Because I know there's something in you leaving out.
You're not naive.
Right. I know I left out all kinds of stuff, right?
I agree.
Because I'm telling you now, my parents were off the chain, right?
So you can bring.
They didn't wait
really?
for anything. What? They didn't wait for anything. And then here's what got me. And I got to be honest and tell you. Here's what got me. I would see the punishments my brother used to get.
Okay.
And it deterred me from a whole lot of things.
Okay.
Right, because
they went in.
And the dude, and I'm sitting there like, man, this dude is getting it. Man, my brother, it did not matter. I'm talking about, man, he would get it from my mom, he would get it from my dad.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like, man, I don't want that.
Right.
And so for me, that deterred me from doing a lot of things that I wanted to do or I was going to do because my brother was like, man, he's going to do it.
You're very smart. You learn by example.
I did learn by example, right? Quick, I learned by example.
Right.
And so, but I do know that you know, kids, and even for myself, I don't always tell my parents everything. So I approach my kids like I believe 75% of what you're telling me. That other 25% that you're not telling me, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be a little bit still suspicious. Not that I don't trust you,
right? But I'm not dumb.
I
was a kid once too.
I was a kid. I know you're gonna be leaving out something you're not gonna be telling me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I have to approach it in that way to think that, you know what, so I need to make sure that.
So the key is though, like, so what you're relying on is like, okay, look, 75% of this is true, and I just hope that other 25%, although not true, is in the realm of acceptable behavior. Where you're like, okay,
somewhere close.
Yeah, I know you was doing this. As long as you're not over here, like all across the line.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Right. And I thought I was smart too growing up.
Right.
I thought I knew more than what my parents know.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so what I try to do, I try to get ahead of my kids by telling them scenarios and giving them questions about things like, you know, so what if you were in that situation? What would you do?
Right. Put them in a real situation.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna try
I have to do that,
yeah.
Because I want to hear their answer. Right. I want to hear what would you do, and that's the whole responsibility thing. You got to think, right? So for me, I'm like, I got to get ahead of my kids because. And I may not have known, you know, my parents probably knew exactly what I was doing, right? That's probably why some of the things happened that did happen, right? You know what I mean? So I just want to make sure I get ahead of my kids, so I give them real world examples, ask them, put them in situations to see how they respond and what they're going to tell me.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do the exact same thing with with my daughter as she comes of age. Just put her in, like for instance, use life as teaching moments. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Things in the news, things we see there, and just say, okay, well, you know, you're telling me this, but there's gonna be a day when we're not around. And what would you do if you were in this situation?
Absolutely.
And that's so. To your point though about parents knowing what most of you do, that brings me to the snitch story, right? So
okay, let's hear this.
So yeah, so some bullshit here. So
all right,
like, I think it was the summertime. I bet 16 or 17 or whatever, junior or senior year. I think maybe it was a senior year. Dad's at work. He works far away.
Right.
He lives like an hour and a half away. Right. I'm at the house, just chilling, just waiting for the just a lazy summer day. I call him up and tell him, hey, my stepbrother's gonna call because it's going to come. Excuse me, stepbrother's gonna come pick me up. We're gonna go to the basketball court. We're gonna hoop, do our thing, which is the thing that we used to do.
Right.
So there's no reason for him not to believe.
That's legitimate.
That's legitimate.
You've done that before.
I didn't say we're gonna go
with your friends
to the Juilliard School of Arts.
Absolutely. No. None of that stuff.
I said we're gonna go hoop. So I said let's go hoop.
Yep.
I go. I leave with him. What actually happened was I went over a young lady's house.
Right.
To play
Did you hoop before going over the lady's house?
No.
Was a hoop in any place? Were you going to hoop after you got away from the girl's house?
So I went over there and then it was basketball.
Right, but none of that.
No, there was no basketball.
Okay, got
it. But so I go over the young lady's house. We hang out, and then after that, I go over to my mother's house. On the other side of town. And later that evening, I'm just checking in with him. I'm like, did this, blah blah blah. And he's like, okay, yeah. And then out of nowhere, for no reason, because there's no reason for him to believe I didn't hoop.
Right, because you told me you was hooping, you did all the time.
He just says, he's like, you didn't go play basketball, did you? You went over to that girl's house. Now, for those of you who have seen this to society, I've been told not to swear, but you know what I want to say. You know you didn't. You know you messed up, right? So when he said that to me, my mind, I'm going crazy in my mind, like, how could this thing? How did he know where I was at? So there's this long pause where I'm on the phone. I don't know that I'm being silent, but I'm like running through all the scenarios. Like, well, he's here. He did actually physically go to work. He couldn't have driven. Once I realized that there was no way for him to know, it was too late. I paused for too long. I knew I was a guy. And I think I was just amazed that he knew. Of course, I'm an idiot kid. I don't know that he didn't know.
Right.
And he straight bluffed me into snitching on myself. Where I was like, I think I said something stupid like, I was like, what are you talking about, or something to clearly indicate that I was
that lying. You did something wrong.
Yeah. And I don't think it was so much what I had done because I was a young man at that point. But he reprimanded me for lying and everything else, and I was just amazed for a long time that he knew. And of course, when I got older, he was like, I didn't know. I'm not dumb. Like you said.
Absolutely.
I've done things too.
Yeah,
I was a kid once too. So.
Yeah. And that's for me too. For my kids, I always tell them, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather for you to tell me the truth.
Right.
Get in trouble.
Right.
Than to lie that's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got told that a lot.
Yeah. So that's good, man. It's good. Man, and look, this was a great show.
I think so.
I mean, I really love having you on the show. We got to get you back again to talk more about this, talk more about some of the things that happened to us growing up.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then
I got more
some things I know, exactly.
Yeah,
and what we going to do to our kids, right? Because I want to do a whole lot to my kids that my parents did to me. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm going to get them. What?
Yeah.
So, hey, thank you guys for watching. This is 15 Good Minutes. I want you to subscribe. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on IG. Like us there. All right? Peace.